Hello, 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 and welcome to the delayed second episode of the F and Yes show. I am Scott Ephraim Horowitz, and by my side always is my hetero life mate.
Josh Yehoshua Lepowski.
And today we are deemed by our special guest. He is our spiritual advisor. He is the man who walks around on the Penn State campus more well known than Coach James Franklin. Uh, he is the original Chabad rabbi of the Penn State Chabad,
He has a
Rabbi
better
Nassan.
record than Franklin.
He has a better record than Franklin, Rabbi Nassan Moretsky,
Yeah,
more fondly known as Rabs. So,
to some, yeah.
yeah. So, just a quick note before we jump into anything. The first day of Chabad on Penn State was September 11th, 2001. We were setting up a table in the hub and watching TV at the same time. The hub is the student center for those who are not Penn State alum aware. It's a crazy day. Remember it?
That was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely go down history.
Uh, so,
I mean,
as
in the world and at Penn State.
yeah, and we're getting back to where we were back then. So, we'll do a quick current events recap with our expert on terrorism, President Donald J. No, I'm just kidding. The expert Mr. Josh
Who are
Lepowski.
you comparing me to?
We are looking a little orange today. Were you outside of the sun?
I have not been outside in days. I've been fighting a sinus infection, so even paler than usual. Which also might be due to world events.
Yeah.
See what I did with that segue there?
Eh.
So, what's been going on in the world today, June 25th? We are a few days past last Friday when Israel launched a military strike against Iran's nuclear facilities. Excuse me, the aforementioned sinus infection. So on Friday, after years of threatening to do so, Israel launched a military strike against Iran's nuclear facilities.
No, the U.S. launched
Israel launched
I mean,
first.
Oh, it was Israel
Right,
first.
second,
The U.S. joined in on
Uh,
Sunday,
sorry, I lost track.
but Israel launched on Friday, which, does anybody remember what the date was?
On Friday was
Rabs?
June. Your birthday?
No, that's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
Rabs, what was the date on Friday?
I mean, it was the
The Hebrew date or
it
the
was the, we're
English date?
talking about it was the Friday before last,
It was Friday
Yes.
yeah, it was Friday the 20th.
Friday the 13th. We're talking about the
It
Hebrew
was
date or the English date.
English date.
Um,
Friday the 13th.
Friday the
okay.
13th,
Oh, so you're talking about
which
last Friday.
was
Okay.
not just Friday the 13th, it was June 13th. It was
613 mitzvah.
613.
That's
Aha.
right.
Uh,
So, um,
And I think it was the 613th day since October 7th.
somewhere around
uh,
then.
possibly. So, but on June 13th, Israel launched, leading to several days of strikes. And then over the weekend, um, after the U.S. dropped a few bunker busters, a ceasefire was declared, and a ceasefire was quickly broken, but seems to be holding somewhat right now. Um, and the experts are trying to figure out exactly how much damage was actually done to Iran's nuclear program. Um, the timing of these events, aside from being 613, very auspicious. However, the timing in general, geopolitically, is also very interesting because it came for years, Israel has been threatening to strike. The U.S. has been uh, in various negotiations, but the concern primarily was that if Israel or the US launched a military strike against Iran's facilities, Iranian retaliation, as well as retaliation by Iranian proxies, primarily Hezbollah, would be devastating. However, over the past week, we saw that was not the case. Unfortunately, we did have some fatalities in Israel, civilian fatalities, and we mourn those deaths. However, it was not nearly the level of destruction that Iran had been threatening for well over a decade. And we have a few different geopolitical factors that came into play with this. Hezbollah, Iran's primary regional proxy, which fought on behalf of Iran in the Syrian civil war and has launched thousands of missiles and rockets at Israel over the past few decades, as well as being responsible for terror attacks in Europe and the deadliest terror attack in Argentina's history. Hezbollah has essentially been neutered in the past several months. While it still maintains an arsenal, and we did see Hezbollah launch many rockets toward Israel last year, leading to the evacuation of northern communities, which still have many of which still have not returned. But Hezbollah is essentially at its weakest point now in decades. And this began with the assassination of longtime Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah last year. Nasrallah had long been thought to be off limits, and that his going after him would result in world war, or at least a large regional war. However, that did not happen. We had a couple of weeks last year, and then Lebanon and the U.S. signed a ceasefire, which Israel and Hezbollah have largely abided by. In addition, we see Hezbollah politically weakened. In Lebanon, we have after over 2 years, Lebanon has elected a new president who has finally activated the Lebanese army to start clearing Hezbollah weapons out of southern Lebanon. This has been the Lebanese responsibility since the end of the 2006 war. However, Lebanon has failed to take on this responsibility, fearing Hezbollah's military might. But over the past few weeks, the Lebanese army has asserted itself and begun dismantling Hezbollah military sites and collecting Hezbollah weapons. So what we see now is actually a new Lebanon emerging, and that with adding to that the fall of the Assad regime in Syria and the new regime there, which the jury is still out on. What we do know about it is they are no fans of Iran. And so between Syria and Lebanon, Iran has lost its major pathway toward the Mediterranean as well as toward Israel. The regional Iranian proxy that remains a threat is the Houthis in Yemen, which have continued to launch rocket attacks on Israel, as well as engage in piracy in the Red Sea, attacking Israel-linked shipping vessels. But for the most part, Iran is at its weakest point in years because of all of these factors, which enabled Israel to go in, absorb the Iranian retaliation, and successfully dismantle a lot of Iranian military sites and wipe out a lot of the IRGC leadership. So whether or not this ceasefire holds long term remains to be determined. How much damage was done to Iran's nuclear facilities remains to be determined. But it is safe to say that I think we are looking at a new Middle East where Israel is the only hegemon, um, because Iran has been wounded and is now still remains a threat, but its shield is gone, and its shield of invulnerability, its cloak of invulnerability has fallen.
Was that rehearsed?
That was not rehearsed. Although I basically said the exact same thing on a different podcast about 10, 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, but don't listen to that one. Listen to this podcast.
I mean, you should listen to anything that I'm on,
Yeah.
but especially this one.
Yeah. So, moral of the story is World War III did not happen, but it still may.
It's June.
Enough said.
Yes, but yes, the doomsday clock appears to have been pushed back a little bit. How far we
Mm,
won't know for
mm.
a little bit. Um,
I-
or maybe I'm completely wrong and we're going to Iran is
Josh,
planning
we're home.
something
Or...
that don't tell my wife. But there's an old adage that the cemeteries are filled with people who made predictions about the Middle East. So these are my thoughts now. They may change.
Yeah, yeah, we
I mean, most of what you said is pretty empirical. Reality is that
mm,
there are huge changes that have happened in the past year or so
yeah, it's kind of crazy
that
how
could
like
lead to very good
yeah,
good places and lead to much more peace.
uh, well, in terms of our later discussion, if Nixon said, oh, if I'm sorry, if Spock said only Nixon could go to China, I guess it's now is only Trump could bomb Iran.
Technically, Israel bombed it first.
Yeah.
Right.
They played our hand.
I mean, just it's America was the only one with the what is a 30,000
The
pound
the bunker busters. But they're
well
saying
that size of bunker busters.
they're saying though that Iran like moved a lot of stuff beforehand. You don't know how much is actual.
There are reports that the U.S. did give advance notice that the strikes were coming, as Iran gave the U.S. advance notice about these strikes on Qatar. So
Mm,
that feeds into the question of just how much damage was actually done.
yeah.
Um,
It's kind of weird. I'm going to attack you, but I'm going to tell you I'm going to attack you before I attack you.
I mean, on one hand, the idea is to move the
Civilians.
civilians or the people
Yeah.
out, but it may have also given Iran time to move other
Yeah.
materials out of the way.
Like I know historically Israel's been very good about like like what's it where they like release a bomb that has no payload like
The
to just on the
the knock on the roof.
yeah, and they
So
release
they'll
pamphlets or
drop
maybe
a
it's
smaller
yeah.
uh payload, just it's basically a roof tap
Yeah.
signaling to
We're
the
gonna
people inside, get out.
uh, but they don't care about human lives. They're just a genocidal force. That's my sarcastic voice.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Iran.
Hey, I support the Shah.
Oh, great sarcasm.
Hey, you knew you were getting into it when you signed up for this podcast, Raps. Well, since he does have the title of rabbi, we promised him a 45-minute Devar Torah. So
I'm going to take a
Oh,
nap.
okay.
let's
45 minutes.
see if he could. So we'll give him. He could do a little bit of give us little words of Torah about this week's parsha in any way of venting it to this, that's not a word, making it relevant to whatever's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I was told to possibly make it relevant to Star Trek, but
Oh, everything's
yeah,
relevant to Star Trek. That's the first.
right. So, but just to backtrack before we
Yeah.
get to the relevance of Star Trek,
Yeah.
just to know the general kind of concept, the Torah person is named Korach, which is the individual in the Torah portion who's basically the leader of his rebellion, who decides he was a very further he was extremely wealthy guy. He was a very smart guy, and he was also from the same tribe of Moses and Aaron, tribe of Levi. And he thought he was like, okay, he's creating this whole rebellion. So why should Moses should be the king? Why should Aaron be the high priest? We're all equal. We're all special. I mean, when in reality, of course, he wanted to take the power for himself. And how is it? What to kind of understand what he really wanted and what his whole kind of this deeper intention, what was going on, is more where it's related to Star Trek. That if you look even in the name, his name, which is the name of the Torah portion, and compare it to the name of the Torah portion next to the Torah portion, Korach and Chukas, both of them have a similar two letters, which is Chayk, which is a Ches and a Kuf. But the difference is that Korach has a Resh and the Chukas has a Taf. And in a certain sense, so he was at the level of Chayk. Chayk is, I mean, Chayk means like a statue. It means it's a very high level. He was a Levite, so he was very smart. And he had this, certain ideas. What were the certain ideas? They're related to the letter Resh. The letter Resh only has, unlike letter Hey, the Hey has like three different sides. The Resh just has two different sides. It's this side and this side,
Yeah.
but it's lacking the little thing that the Hey has. So these two sides relate to thought and speech. And this one relates to action. I mean, his whole thing was that godliness shouldn't come down and permeate the world. It shouldn't affect the world. It shouldn't be in the world. It should just be removed, like thought and speech. Just kind of fine. I mean, you can have godliness. You can, study the deep concepts, but it shouldn't affect the world. It should be up there in space, kind of like the Starship Enterprise up in space. Floating around, removed from the world, not be in the world. Many of the voyages, they're the Star Trek Enterprise, and they're just around, and they're not on Earth. They're anywhere but Earth. But as you see in Star Trek 4, Return Home, where did they
Voyage home.
come down? Voyage home, yes. Came down to San Francisco, came down back to planet Earth, for the sake of the humpback whales. And that's the tough of Hukos is that the necessity of connecting the thought and the speech of the Reish, but having a tough, having a full connection like we see in the tough, which is bottom line. The main thing is we cannot have Judaism cannot be something that's up in the sky, it's up in the heavens, that's it's removed from the world. But it's anything in Judaism, anything in Torah that we're learning has to come down and affect our daily actions, affect how we relate to our spouse or relate to our children, how we relate to other people, how we, see our own anxieties and stresses. And it's a real in the physical world type of thing. And that's what it's supposed to come down to and affect. And that's one of the main things we've done with Korach. And of course, how it's related to Star Trek.
Yeah. He forgot the low-hanging fruit though. Korach sounds
What?
like a Klingon name.
Oh, okay, yeah, fine. That's true.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So the reason we asked
I
Raps,
don't know. I don't know how that was related to everything else, but I guess that could be
I mean,
like,
did Korach have Klingon attributes?
I mean,
Sense of
what
honor?
right? Yeah, yeah.
ridged forehead.
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing is again, Korach actually says another explanation, another way of looking at it. It says Korach saw the future. So Korach saw the time of the Mashiach,
Um,
but it wasn't like
Okay,
at the time. It wasn't that time. It wasn't what the desert was. It was like 3,000, 2,000 years too early, or 3,000 years too early. But and again, the main thing of Mashiach is also that it should come down in the world and permeate the world and transform the physical world.
So the reason we asked Rabs to relate the portion of Star Trek, which he did pretty well, is we want to talk about how Jewish is Star Trek overall. So Star Trek is, just to give you a little background, Star Trek premiered September 8th, 1966. It has had, how many is that? 8 live action TV series, including the original one, 3 animated,
Wow.
13 feature length films, and 1 straight to streaming film that we won't talk about.
3 animated?
Animated series, Lower Decks and Prodigy.
Oh, Prodigy. I forgot about Prodigy.
Did you watch the second season of Prodigy yet on Netflix?
I've started.
So good. But anyway. So the original series had 2 Jewish actors, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. So
No,
it's a
no,
good way
no,
to-
no, 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 no. Koenig.
Oh, Koenig, I forgot about Koenig. 3 Jewish actors. Next Gen.
Also, Majel Barrett. I believe
She
was
wasn't really a
also Jewish.
star, but TNG we
But
had.
Koenig was Jewish?
Yeah, he was.
Is
Oh,
Is yeah, he's
yes,
still alive.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Next Gen we had Spiner and as a main role. I think that was it. I don't think Colm Meaney is Jewish.
no.
Nah. DS9 we struck out on the main cast, but
Armin Shimmerman.
Armin Shimmer's Jewish? I don't know. Max Grodenchik and who played Rom and oh, what was Nog's real name? I think he was Jewish also.
Max Eisenberg.
Max Eisenberg. So both of them I'm pretty sure were Jewish.
So basically the Ferengi.
The Ferengi. Oh, that's awful. But we'll come back to Deep Space Nine because I actually think that has the best tie-in. Voyager, I'm not sure about Ethan Phillips. I looked online. It's a little.
I don't think he is.
Yeah. He's from Long Island and his father owned a steakhouse, so it is possible.
You're looking through every single version?
Yeah, let's go through it. Discovery, I don't know. Jason Isaacs, first season.
Yes.
Picard, we go back to Brent Spiner again. Strange New Worlds, I don't think any of them. I don't think no. And the animated series, I really don't know the voice actor. Oh, Lower Decks, yeah, Jack Quaid. His mother's Goldie Hawn, so he's an 1/8 Jewish then. If his mother was a quarter Jewish.
Not too shabby.
So why Josh and I a long time ago decided we just realized we both were nerds. If you meet us within 5 seconds, you can pretty much tell that. And we kind of bonded specifically over Star Trek. We met in fall of 99.
99.
Yeah. So that
Lot 80, looking
yeah.
for your car.
Yeah, shut up.
Check out episode 1 of the podcast for that story.
So I'm pretty sure that was right when Insurrection came out. That I think fall of 99 was Insurrection.
Was it? Now I gotta IMDb that. I thought Insurrection was. Oh, I'm
It was
thinking
98 actually.
98.
Oh, it was fall of 98. I thought it was fall of 98. Oh, that's right. It was my sophomore year. That's right. So it was right after. So yeah, okay. That makes sense because whatchamacallit was 96, First Contact. So it was at that time, Deep Space Nine was still in the air, Voyager was on the air, even though we had trouble watching both in State College.
Deep Space Nine we were able to watch, but
Yeah,
Voyager
Voyager,
was
yeah,
difficult because we
yeah.
didn't get UPN.
Yep.
But Deep Space Nine was syndicated.
I
and we
used to
got
have my
that on
dad record it for me
WPIX.
every week at home, and I would watch it every time I went home.
Yeah.
But
Nemesis came out in 2002.
2002. That was a long break. So that was probably what I would call the golden age of Star Trek, the 90s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we
three.
had 3 Star Trek TV series, 2 on the air at the same time.
Yeah, and we had what in between the 90s we had 3 movies, 4 movies.
Well,
4 movies.
I would say 5 movies.
Was Star Trek 5 in the 90s or was that
no, 4 movies.
4 movies.
So
yeah,
yeah.
the 3D.
So Undiscovered Country.
Yeah, and then the 3
came out in 91.
Yeah, and then the 94, 96, and 98. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how Jewish is Star Trek aside from what we're talking about? So I've been thinking about this since Josh and I originally started talking about this 6 months ago. Like, I always think of the Bajoran people from Deep Space Nine as an example of Jews. They were a displaced people until they fought off their invaders to get their home planet back. They've always been portrayed as very spiritual, very involving their religion in every days of their lives. They were freedom fighters. They were farmers. They basically had to cultivate their planet back.
Mm.
And just I don't know, because Star Trek has always used races to represent people. Like the Klingons were the Russians for a really long time. If you've seen Star Trek 6, that literally is the explosion of Praxis is Chernobyl. Pretty clear. And then like I don't know, what do you kind of see where I'm going at with this, Josh?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I always looked at Deep Space Nine and the Bajorans as Jews and the
yeah,
Cardassians as the Nazis.
yeah,
Um, and that uh, it really struck a
yeah.
chord, I think. Um,
I mean, they took
Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to overlook some of the really bad writing in the beginning of Deep
yeah,
Space Nine, but
it got better as like, and like other things is like Star Trek's themes of inclusivity, like in the 60s to have a black woman and a Russian helmsman slash security officer, Russian security officer slash navigator slash security officer. It's been a long day. Odd bridge was like unheard of. So like Judaism is always accepting of everybody, in my opinion. We're a big tent. We allow everyone in. We're always looking for more. We're always welcoming in. It's also a lot of the Vulcan salute. Leonard Nimoy got that from the priestly blessing. He's said it on many interviews.
yeah.
Right. No, that's definitely very direct and clear.
Yeah. And I even think like the Idic is something based on um,
I mean, the IDIC was
yeah,
according to
yeah.
uh,
Because I know
Shatner's biography,
yeah,
and I think also Nimoy's biography, more so Nimoy probably.
yeah.
Um, it was a pure marketing thing.
Okay. Okay.
Roddenberry shoved that in there so he could sell
Yep.
toys.
The interesting thing about Roddenberry is he was very adamant about like not having religion. Because
Yeah,
because Roddenberry's thing is he didn't want interpersonal conflicts. He felt that we are in the 2300s, the human race is elevated beyond these things. And he felt religion is one of these things that brings interpersonal conflicts. So he wanted to make sure that the show was actually fairly agnostic. But so that's why, like, I'd say even more in the later series, you see more representation after Roddenberry was hands off, especially like in TNG, like season 3 and season 4, when you had like the androgynous characters or like, a lot of those things that going on. But specifically, like Deep Space Nine was really where religion took the forefront.
right. And you had the Bajorans
Yeah.
again being a very
Mm.
religious people. So you had their priestly class um, that they basically
Yeah.
lived in a theocracy. Um,
Yeah. Their
and
their high priest, for lack of better terms, was their head of state.
right, which according to uh, original series, Vulcan society was also seemed to be
That was
in a similar thing with
Right.
they
That's
had a high
I was going to
priestess.
mention that
yeah. I
also.
mean, that was
Yeah,
more
the Vulcan
logic.
Society too.
Yeah, the priests were more about logic than religion, but I guess you could say logic is a religion to the Vulcans.
I mean that
Yeah.
idea was really developed more, I think, especially
Yeah.
in Enterprise,
Yeah.
where the followers of Sarek uh,
Oh, the cult. Yeah.
uh, became were looked at as religious zealots,
Yeah.
basically, until they then became the dominant force of Vulcan.
And this is interesting, like repression of your emotions to maintain logic. I mean, the Vulcans had severe, extreme mental, clarity to be able to do this. And like a lot of like one of the things in Judaism is always to immerse yourself in your studies. Like, I mean, I've been a bad example of that. Rabs has probably been a better example of that than Josh or I. But like, it's, we're always learning. There's always like, the one thing I've always liked about Judaism is we're encouraged to ask why. If something goes on, it's not like
Hmm.
this happens, you just have to do it. You're
Why
always
is
asked why.
that?
Good, well played.
I think also the whole Vulcan thing you're describing is
Yeah.
also I mean, not exactly the same concept, but there's a concept of, it's called Moyach Shalit al Alev, which means, it says Moyach Shalit al Alev, but told us that the brain can have a dominion, so to speak, over the heart. And if one has emotions that are
Mm,
going in a certain way that are not so healthy for the person, one could kind of like use their brain to meditate upon certain concepts
mm,
and kind of rein in their heart or control the hearts, their emotions to go, in a positive way and not the opposite. So, I mean, obviously a Vulcan is I guess, kind of not expressing emotions this way or that way in a very obviously outward way.
mm.
But I think there is kind of that little bit of that connection of the brain kind of being able to influence the brain, can be in charge of the emotions.
You brought up an interesting point before, Josh, when you talked about the Ferengi being all Jews. So, do you think the Ferengi could be used as like in a way to call out the negative stereotypes and using humor as a way to say like it's ridiculous to use it, or do you think it was just, or am I reading too much into this?
I'm not sure about the
Uh,
Ferengi because the Ferengi we saw originally
yeah,
in
it changed.
the first season of Next Generation
Yeah,
were very different than the Ferengi that evolved later in that series and
yeah.
then more so on Deep Space Nine. And really
Mm.
the Ferengi culture and identity really emerged in Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine.
yeah, yeah. And I'm saying, but a capitalist culture that only seeks profit and has really big ears
I
and no,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's you can
I,
also draw
it could just be
questions
comic
about the
relief.
it could be pure coincidence
Yeah.
that they were all played by Jewish actors,
I mean, a lot of the writers
or
then
you
were
can look
Jewish.
at the Harry Potter the thing also is
The
like why are
goblins.
the goblins and the
Yeah.
banks kind of look like Jewish
Yeah.
stereotypes. Um, and like, is there a deeper meaning behind that and behind the Ferengi?
Just remember,
Uh,
we control Hollywood, so it can't be.
or that's what we want you to think.
And another thing you mentioned earlier was about the Klingons. Like early on, it was established that the Klingons were a parallel for the Russians. Another power with these threats. It just the way they acted. But as like again, and we keep going to Deep Space Nine because that's really where a lot of these things developed. Specifically, like Ronald D. Moore became like the writer who built the Klingons. They developed a huge spirituality that was never really seen until the Deep Space Nine again. Like they evolved a whole religion with like a belief in an afterlife. I mean, it was a warrior
I mean, I
culture
think that developed in Next Generation also
a
because we
little
did
bit.
see Worf go to a monastery
Yeah,
and have
the vision of
his
Kahless.
vision of Kahless, and then we had the episode of Kahless, the Klingon Messiah figure,
Yeah,
returning.
yeah.
And then, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this 35-year-old episode yet,
Thanks for kissing
he
Lil.
turned out to be a clone. Um,
Yeah,
and really, that's I felt that had some Christian undertones as well.
a little bit. Yeah. Mm, well, it's our Messiah. We said it first. So anyway,
They should have just named him Brian. He's
Right.
may not be the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
I still say that's a better movie than Holy Grail, but that's a different
I agree.
diatribe. Um, it's also with like Cisco being the prophet, the ability to see the
Holy Grail has some good lines.
Holy Grail is more quotable, but I think the plot of Life of Brian is just overall better, and that's where
Right.
I always look on the bright side of life comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Mm.
I think
So-
this is a whole nother episode.
How Jewish are movies about Christians?
We lost
I
this
mean, it's the
episode,
Judean
and
People's
that's the
Front,
final
so
word.
It's the People's Front of Judea.
Judean People's Front.
People's Front of Judea.
Ah,
It's
And
happening, Reg.
but also again with Cisco being the prophet, as I go back to like
the emissary.
the emissary, which is a prophet. Oh, sorry, they called their god the prophets and the prophet the emissary. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
emissary is not the same as a prophet.
No, in Deep Space Nine, that's what they referred to their gods or their wormhole entities as their prophets, which was the god. So yeah, they were a polytheistic society, so maybe they weren't that Jewish. But then they had the emissary, which was their conduit to the gods, which is really a prophet. Did I explain that right, Josh?
Sounds about
Yeah.
right.
But even like later stuff, like I haven't watched. I probably Enterprise is probably the show I've seen the least of. Like I rewatched a lot of Deep Space Nine and Voyager over the pandemic, and I started getting Enterprise, and then just forgot how bad it was.
The last season I thought
The
was
last season
great.
got good. That's when they got canceled. But yeah,
Yeah,
but
too
again,
little, too late. But
that's probably where the Vulcan culture got more developed than anything.
yes,
Yeah,
that's where we saw that two-parter about the Sarek cultist,
yeah.
and
We talked about that earlier.
that was, I
Mm.
think that was great Star Trek. But yeah, the whole Xindi arc was trash.
Yeah,
Um,
and the first two seasons were too.
yeah.
Honestly, Strange New Worlds is probably my favorite of the new series. Are you all caught up on that?
Yes, I am caught up on that. And yeah, it's like
Ugh.
the original series with a budget
Yeah,
and just consistent writing.
and they've done
Um,
there's something episode I'm thinking of, and I can't think of it right now.
the
Where they,
musical episode,
well, no, that was just fantastic, but that's a whole different story.
like Klingons doing K-pop.
Well, there's also like there are some like morality issues that really came up, like the episode where they went back in time and she had to decide if she could kill Khan, her ancestor, or not to save the world from Tyrant,
Yeah,
and like the ethical implications of killing a child to save the world.
would you kill baby Hitler?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, technically speaking, according to different time travel, that would just start an alternate reality because your past by then is your future and not your. Okay. I just
Yeah, I've gone cross-eyed. Um,
So
I mean,
that's
they
an
talk
issue-
about this in
yeah, Endgame.
Avengers and
Yeah,
Endgame, where someone suggests, "Why don't we just go back and kill
kill
baby
baby
Thanos?"
Thanos.
And Professor Hulk's response is, "That's awful."
And B, it wouldn't do anything because you're going into your future, which is really your past. But ethically speaking, does Pekuach Nefesh, for one, take place over? Listen, do the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few in this case, Rabbi? Perhaps.
In which case?
If you could go back in time and kill baby Hitler to stop the Holocaust, what would halacha say you do? If time travel was theoretically possible.
Well, I mean, at that moment,
He's an innocent.
he's not pursuing anybody.
Yeah.
He's not.
Yeah.
Is that is that really self-defense?
Mhm.
You know, I mean, first, if you're talking about a baby, who knows what age and because of why he came up with
Yeah.
deciding what he wanted to do. I don't for sure it was not when he was still a baby.
What if you just go to the Vienna Arts Academy and convince them to admit him as a student?
Well, there was I think it's a Stephen King story, but it was a show also, 11/22/63, where this guy kept going back to that day to try to stop Oswald. I think that's what the story was. Like, and he kept going back in time to stop him, but something kept happening because that's like a point.
Cobblepot or Lee Harvey?
Lee Harvey. I forgot what it's called. It's like a point in history that cannot be undone. It's just like it's one of those pivotal points in history, and everything he did to try to stop it, he couldn't.
Look, if we have learned anything from Doctor Who, there are fixed points in history
Hmm.
that cannot be altered. And if you attempt to alter them, bad things happen. The
Yeah,
universe,
fixed point.
reality
That's what I was trying to think.
starts
Yeah.
unraveling. And like there are those
Mm.
fixed points just cannot be undone. Other parts are malleable,
Yeah.
but certain things
So,
are off limits.
and the theme of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or
Or
the
the
one.
one.
It's actually like
Like in what way?
I just saying like I think in certain ways Jews look at when October 7th happened, every Jew in the world was affected. There is not a single Jew that I know that is not more than 1 degree connected to Israel in any way. Considering half our
Right.
population lives there, you like everybody there's related to somebody, has a friend there. We're all connected. And that's why I think like in that case, like we've become so I'm trying to think of the word like more pro-Zionist than we have been in the last recent time. Like there's been a is a pride for Israel that
No, that's part of it. It's just it's just
it's
feeling more.
it's our
It's
it's our
realizing
identity.
we're all one family. That we like we're connecting to our that we are a family.
And that's what I'm saying. The
And
needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Because we look at us as one people, not as an individual in certain ways. Like,
I mean, okay, so let's draw the Jewish parallel.
yeah,
If you save one life, it's
yeah.
as if you save an entire world. If you take a life, it's as if you killed a world.
right,
So
Or even
we have a
even go
parallel there.
even go even simpler. You're not supposed to pray alone. You're supposed to pray in a group of 10. These are the many. Like just getting 10 men or 10 people together, depending on how you look at things, to just say so somebody could say Kaddish. The needs of the many.
how does that tie in with the Rathacon again?
The theme is the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. That's the theme of the it's said over and over again. That's when Spock sacrifices himself to Spock
Uh-huh.
Spoiler alert.
yeah. So I know like here's another good one. Spock went into a radiated room knowing he would die to save the ship.
Right.
What's the number one commandment? Preserving your own life. But if you could save what was the population Enterprise? Like 300 on the Enterprise the original
Something like
Enterprise,
that.
something like that. If you could save 300 people by sacrificing yourself, what would Judaism say?
Good question.
We've
I
stumped the
mean,
rabbi.
again, no, it's something that I mean,
Mm.
you can put yourself in a situation where you don't know for sure that like you can put yourself in a dangerous situation to save,
Yeah,
the great Entebbe, they put themselves,
yeah.
Netanyahu's brother didn't know he was going to pass away, but he was taking a
Yeah,
risk,
he's
and
but the intention there was Spock knew to do this he would die. There was no way he would survive because the radiation levels in this room were done, and if he didn't do it, the ship would have been destroyed. So he would have died
right,
either way, come to think of it. If he didn't do it, the ship would have been destroyed and he would have died. So by sacrificing himself, I guess that's one way of also looking at it. No matter what he would have done, he would have died. That's how logic played in this way.
right.
I mean, he was
You're
gonna
damned.
die no
It
matter
was
what. Might
yeah,
as well save the rest of the ship.
yeah. But it's still it's
But
just
he was the only one who could do it.
he was Scotty wasn't going to go in there. Like
He was incapacitated
yeah,
at that point.
the engineer was in no shape to do it. That's right. The other person who could do it. It's been a while since I watched Wrath of Khan. Also, we should do a rewatch on that and just talk about it, like a reaction video. It's been a while.
I
I
missed
mean,
the
it's been a little while
3K.
for me too. I just remember this is Set the Alpha 5 one.
Remember what? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
This is Set the Alpha 5?
That was a pretty good Ricardo Montalban. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of like, trying to think how else. Like, we should have so much to talk about on this that I'm drawing a blank. Josh, come on, you have to have some other things to think about.
Oh, Star Trek and Jews. Star Trek and Jews. Star Trek and Jews. Um, I mean, can we talk about Mel Brooks and Jews and Spaceballs?
That's a little more on the nose. Like
Is
that's
is that really happening in Spaceballs too?
It
Yep.
is happening.
It's actually like really happening.
And Mel
It's
Brooks is coming back to play Yogurt. So what I'm thinking they're gonna do is they're gonna make Yogurt
So he's gonna
CG.
be like he'll be like 100 years old when it
He's
comes out.
98 right now.
Really?
Kanahara.
So this is
So
it's supposed to come out in 2 years.
what I think they should do is they should record his lines in advance and then make Yogurt's computer generated like Yoda or AI it or something like that.
Frank Oz, another Jew.
One of my favorite things about Mel Brooks was before Carl Reiner died, the two of them would get together every day and just watch movies together.
Every
And I
day?
like they were best friends, so they just had nothing else to
Yeah.
do. They would just watch movies. I literally wish somebody just recorded the two of them watching movies and hear the stuff the two of them said to each other. I just think it would be pure comedy gold. Like,
I mean, it would basically be like their album.
mhm.
Just, I mean, that's
What's
kind
it?
of how the 2,000-year-old man
It's that, that's it.
developed. They were just
Right.
bouncing it back and forth on each other and finally said, yeah, we should record this.
Um. So here's some things. Oh yeah, Jewish experience and themes. Some episodes like The City on the Edge of Forever touch on themes of World War II and the Holocaust. There was a lot of emphasis on
Well, I
community and
mean,
social.
Edith Keeler,
Yeah,
by living, prevented the U.S. from
that's
getting involved in World War II, and then the Nazis won, and
yeah.
Federation never existed.
This is interesting. The famous, I don't know if this is AI generated, so I don't know if it's entirely accurate. The famous live long and oh, the gesture. I thought it was the phrase gesture. Okay. That's
So
what we
here's
talked about
something
for
I
the
The
just
V.
thought
gesture
of.
said he learned when he was in
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
He was
I
in
said,
show
but I
Yeah.
misread it. I thought
he peaked and saw the Kohanim.
I misread it as phrase. I thought it was like the words "live
Ah,
long and prosper" were from
right.
Jews.
So here's something interesting I just thought
I
of.
mean, it could be like a
Edith
bracha,
Keeler,
like a
Yeah,
blessing. Yeah.
um,
isn't that Joan
and
Collins?
the negative timeline, where she lives, she prevents the U.S. from getting involved in World War II.
Because she marries FDR, right? Or
No, she just becomes like a peacenik or
yeah,
something. But also written by Harlan Ellison, another nice Jewish
yeah.
boy. But what if that timeline is what led to the creation of the Mirrorverse? A world where the U.S. does not enter World War II, Nazis win, and it leads to the Terran Empire.
It's probably kind of cool if they kind of did that, but it's technically the same timeline because Kirk.
It's a branch.
Yeah,
It's a branch.
I hate the multiverse.
Somewhere it exists. Just like Wanda's kids.
Eh,
And in some universe, Wanda Maximoff is Magneto's daughter.
nope. And and overall though,
Really?
like, yeah, Magneto, yeah. Though I think they I still say I think they retconned Magneto to be Jewish. I'm pretty sure he was a gypsy originally, but
Originally, yes.
yeah,
And they may have to retcon him again
yeah.
because we get farther and farther away from the Holocaust.
Mm.
Or they just say it's part of his mutation that he's extremely long-lived.
one of the things I've also liked about Star Trek, probably more so on like the original stuff and the Strange New Worlds more so than Discovery, is when they use, like we were talking about how like they use the Klingons to be the Russians. They didn't outwardly like throw it in your face kind of things. They used the story to show the themes and what they
There
were
were
like
there
trying to
were
do.
parallels,
Yeah,
and like
like
it didn't hit you over the head with it, but like they were
Discovery
there.
did. Discovery they did. But
Yes,
but
but
like
the original series,
but
the
like
movies,
but like the Frank Gorshin episode where he has the black on one and the white on the other,
yeah.
and they're like, "Why are you guys fighting?" Like, he has he has white on the left side of his face. I have it on the right side of my face. Like, I mean, that was a little in your face, but it was just like it was done in a way.
Racism is dumb,
Yeah, exactly.
but that's why evil wins, because good is dumb.
What about the Prime Directive?
Do not interfere. Is that Jewish? I think I don't think that's very Jewish.
Yeah, we
Do not
interfere.
Like
interfere.
We interfere for everything.
it flies in the face of Tikkun Olam.
Flies in the face of
We,
Jewish mothers.
yeah. But
Well,
we interfere in a
Jewish
lot.
mother
Like
said this
we
is not
are
always the
to
Yeah.
we're to be partners in the creation of the world and help perfect it. So it's our job to be involved. Perhaps, wouldn't you agree?
yeah, no, 100%. I mean, there is the stereotypical. What was that? There is of course the whole joke with the the guy's representative of the jury.
The
They
foreman.
said, the foreman, they're asking him what his decision is. He goes, well, we deliberated, Mr. Schwartz, you lovely Mrs. Schwartz, and all maybe all the people. And this, okay, let's get to what it is. So what's the verdict? It says what at the end it says, and we decided that we don't mix in.
Uh,
With that,
You never heard that joke?
what
uh-uh.
was the punchline?
The foreman at the very end, he's like, "Oh, the lovely Mrs. Schwartz." The judge keeps saying, "No, no, okay." So what do you do? So we have come to the conclusion, all of us together, that we don't want to mix in something, whatever. But again, that's
Well,
it's just. But on the other hand, yes, obviously, Judaism is all about the yes, we have a purpose. We are in this world to accomplish something, and this physical world, this whole construct of our physical body being in the physical world is because we are supposed to accomplish something we're supposed to accomplish, transform our body, transform our world, and so on, transform the whole world to redemption, to Mashiach.
so is the Prime Directive antithetical to Judaism?
So what's the prime directive?
Do not
Not into you basically you don't want to change the natural course of a civilization. So basically, like
if
a, if a
civilization has
civilization is
not
free,
achieved
does
warp
not
flight,
drive, the Federation cannot interfere with their progression. They have to let them get there on their own, so they don't interfere with the
Uh-huh.
natural evolution of a planet.
but that also means if they're heading toward a nuclear war,
They let them,
then
Well,
they have a major natural disaster, the Federation will not intervene.
in some
unless
ways,
their captain is James Tiberius Kirk.
in some ways, it's not necessarily antithetical. I mean, again, we what we are accomplishing in these past 3,000 years is supposed to be from us, and us as souls and bodies in the physical world. It's not about if God comes up and it's not superimposing it from above and like just like and making this happen, making that happen. It has to be from our realm, according to our free choice, from us, and doing using the tools we have, you know, to bring it about. And if it takes you know 2,000 years to happen, but we're still still doing the mission. We're
We're
still
patient.
yeah, we're doing the mission, and accomplishing the mission. And
This is this is kind of interesting. There was an article I found about an exhibition um from about 10 years ago, and it says Adam Nimoy said his father, who played Spock, a part Vulcan, part human character, often noted that he was the only alien on the bridge of the Enterprise, drawing a parallel between his role and his history as the son of the Ukrainian Jewish immigrants.
Hmm.
Hmm.
It like I've
Interesting.
one thing I've always like I've said is like we are a hidden minority. Some of us you could walk among people and they would never know you're Jewish.
Right.
I mean, like, if like my rabbi usually wears a hat out when he's out in public instead of a yarmulke to cover his yarmulke sometimes, and just like there are certain exceptions to the rule, but like a lot of times I keep my chai under my shirt. It's just but it's you do you're there is a thing you always do feel different when you're not around Jews. Like I think my wife said it.
You see, the fact that he was half Vulcan and
Half
and
human, a
half
child of two worlds too, but the interesting thing is my wife said this, and I've heard a lot of people say this after October 7th. We only felt comfortable with other Jews. Like they were the only ones that could understand what we were feeling. And like people just didn't get it in a way. And like sometimes like the bulk, I'll be honest, the bulk of my friends are Jews. I do have, a good amount of non-Jewish friends, but my closest friends I met in USY, Hillel Chabad, my synagogue now, it just we gravitate towards each other. I mean,
right.
we're what, 3% of the world's population or 0.3%? 0.3%.
Not three. We're
Yes,
not
there
three.
was 14 million of us roughly.
We're about 2% of the U.S.
US, that's it, yeah.
population.
Yeah, I took it. I looked at it. If you take a cup and fill it with rice grains, if you pull 7 rice grains out, that represents all the Jews compared to the rest of the population of the world, or something like. It's really crazy. Because it's what 7 billion people in the world.
Yeah,
Around
give or
that, yeah.
take.
9 billion. I think it's 9 billion now. But it is true.
7, 8, 9, something like
Yeah.
that.
Like I had a job once where like my father instilled in me at a young age, like, we take off for the holidays, we don't work. Like, and I had a job once, my boss like, you're taking off for what? You really don't eat the whole day? The whole day? You sure? Sure you can't work at all? And this was in New York, where like we're everywhere. It's
You
just
say
like,
he wasn't asking about Tisha B'Av. He was asking about Yom Kippur.
yo, Giver, yeah. Then I had another boss, like then my next boss was Jewish, and like it was easy, but it's just that like even in New York, people don't really like get it. It's very weird. Even like I guess we still all live in our bubbles in a way, which brings us back to another point I want to discuss if we're off of Star Trek, because we are getting close to time, and that was the New York City primary election last night.
Oh
Oy.
yeah.
Mm. So
Well, there's still general elections.
we shot the bed last night, to be lack of better terms. As much as it pains me to say it, vote Eric Adams, because Curtis Sliwa doesn't have a shot in hell.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mamdani is basically he's not even trying to hide his anti-Semitism. He wouldn't answer a question when asked if Israel should be a country.
Well, he said he would arrest Netanyahu if he
Yeah,
came to New York.
which he
Um,
doesn't have the
To get that many numbers that he had to have a considerable amount of Jews. I mean, if there's 1 million Jews in New York City,
well, it was
um,
also like 8% of people voted in the primary. 8% of eligible Democrats voted. It was like ridiculously low.
really,
Yeah,
8%?
it was a really low turnout because
Wow.
primary elections are general. But Adams has the power of incumbency, and Bloomberg ran against an independent, but one is an independent. But we'll see what happens.
I mean, there are rumors that Cuomo might go the independent route also.
But if anything, that would help Mamdani versus hurting him, because that would split the vote between him and Adams.
Yeah, I agree. I'd rather see Cuomo than Adams, but
Yeah,
I mean, I've been to a few events with Adams, and he is very good on the anti-Semitism subject.
yeah, he's
He
just
is
corrupt.
Yeah,
He's just
very,
as corrupt. He's just corrupt as the day is long.
no
yeah.
comment.
Let's be
But is
honest
he
here.
good for the Jews? Is he good for the Jews?
That's the thing. Like, I one other thing, like as we get into this, like everyone just says like the Democrats are bad for the Jews, no, the Republicans. I'm gonna put it this way: everyone's bad for the Jews. There's anti-Semitism on both sides, the extreme left and the extreme right. Just see it in different ways.
What we
Yep.
have, okay, so I'm gonna put my counter extremism hat back on
No, Josh is not wearing
temporarily.
an actual hat.
I could,
Yeah.
but um, traditionally, what we have seen in terms of violent anti-Semitism in this country has emanated from the far right.
That's
What we have seen in recent weeks, starting in DC with the attack at the museum,
mhm.
um, was uh, among the, if not the first, it was among the first uh, violent attack by the far left. Um, and what we
Wasn't there another attack right after that?
there was
Well,
on the
Boulder was not the
Boulder, that's it.
same.
Boulder,
Boulder was not necessarily, it was a different kind of individual. I mean,
right?
Boulder was a guy from Egypt, and
Oh
it
yeah,
wasn't. I mean, but then when
so,
DC was like definitely a very radical far left.
yeah,
You know, just like American Chicago and whatever.
yeah. It's
But
just
what we have is an ideology that has been promoted that paints Israel as the ultimate bad guy, the Goliath that's terrorizing David and the region. And when you put that kind of excuse me, that kind of ideology forward, and you're just pushing that and pushing it and pushing it, eventually you're going to end up with somebody who says, I need to do something about this. Like, I'm going to take some action on my own. And like we saw that uh, in Christchurch with the attack on the mosque. Um, and white supremacist narratives, and now we are seeing how this anti-Semitic uh, narrative that's been pushed for years is finally starting to take root and lead to physical harm.
mm. I mean,
Right.
I would also argue that like, like the rhetoric caused things like Poway and Squirrel Hill from the other side.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's just
That was that's the exact right example
yeah,
as well. And that you have this rhetoric and individuals who say, my race, the white race,
mm,
is under threat. I need to do something about this. I'm
yeah,
going to step up and defend my race against these
yeah,
invaders. And in this case, in DC, it was, I'm going to step up and do something about these evil Israelis, and I'm taking action. And this
Right.
is the rhetoric and the ideology that is now taking root, or has taken root, and is now leading
yeah,
to these types of results. But it goes back to the horseshoe theory that you look at both ends of the spectrum,
yeah.
and
They're back to the same.
it comes back to
Okay,
different ways of hating the Jews.
okay.
Um,
I'll tell you. Watch
I think
SNL.
if,
Watch SNL Black Jeopardy with Tom Hanks on it, and you'll see the best example of that.
yeah,
they're both extremes are have fear involved.
Yeah,
yeah, it's
Like
a
you were saying,
fear of
the
Jewish
guy in
power.
Pittsburgh. Well, Pittsburgh was more like he was fear of immigrants and fear of, I
yeah,
guess, power. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
but he blamed the Jews for bringing in the immigrants. He
Right, right,
blamed
yeah,
Hayas.
right,
no,
right.
a number 2 years ago, actually, I was at a convention and they had some speakers speak during like the meals. And one of the speakers was the rabbi from a Tree of Life who was in the sanctuary when this happened. And usually some of the
Well,
speakers talk, you hear like chatter. I've never seen a room of 1,000 Jews be absolute silence. Nobody was checking their phone. Everyone was just focused on this man telling like his firsthand encounter of Tree of Life, and just like it was just like a very moving moment to like just to see him. He's talking about like I had to stand in the courtroom and see this man, and like it was just
well,
it's a sad world we live in, and like I just I want these wars to end because I think if there's a de-escalation in the Middle East, it probably might help de-escalate some of the anti-Semitism in the country. I'm optimistic. I mean, well, let me rephrase that. It may de-escalate the overt anti-Semitism. I think it'll still exist, but it may not be out and about. Like,
I think that we have groups,
yeah,
um, particularly among the white supremacists, that have crossed a threshold, and come to the realization that they can uh, be normalized, or their positions are normalized,
mm,
and it's going to be very hard to put that genie back in its
mm.
bottle.
So
is Candace Owens in the category of a white supremacist?
Uh,
she's some sort of supremacist. She's let's just call her an a-hole. How's that? Um, so Brabs, one thing we want to ask you before we wrap is, what has your experience been on campus dealing with this anti-Semitism? I know like there was a lot of like the week of protests going on by the SJP on
Week
campus,
of Rage or
Week of
whatever.
Rage, and I saw for those who aren't Penn State familiar, which you should be, um, there's the newspapers like the Daily Collegian, and there's this other news source called Onward State, and they were heavily promoting the SJP thing, and I didn't see a lot of pro-Jewish stuff in there.
Right, that
So
was before the Week of Rage was more recent. That was in the
yeah,
spring.
I mean, talking about during
But
that, they were not even talking to the Jewish people. They were just talking about the Palestinian protests, the SJP.
right, yeah. What truth is the Week of Rage? I hardly even noticed it. It wasn't like a big thing.
Mm,
It had a few small events, but and yeah, I mean in the fall, like one year after the week of October 7th, 2024.
hmm
So yeah, they had the SGP they organized um something. I mean, after the event that us and Hilla did together, which Hilla kind of joined our event in the
mm,
hub, where we had it was a Chabad style event, but Hilla wanted to join it, so we're like, yeah, if you want
mm.
to join it, fine,
Yeah,
sure.
the
This
more
so this is what it's going to be.
the
So
needs of
we
the
had
many
like
outweigh the needs of the few. Yeah.
we had Buckram like putting on film with people. We
Yeah.
had decorating tzedakah boxes, and the president came by and she put the little light
Yeah.
in there to add a mitzvah or whatever. And but so that yeah, SGP had like there on that same day they had something at the Allen Gate, and whatever it was, and then like they had the thing with the white flags, and the whole um the lawn not of Old Main, sorry, the hub lawn, and then they actually had them like literally during Kol Nidre. Like that I think what was it? I think we're going on Friday, I believe. Yeah. So I think that Friday.
Yom Kippur was late this year. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, it was on during Cold Issue, they had another thing as well, like rally or something like that. I mean, there was a whole to do because there was a Jewish sorority girl who rode her bike like
Oh
across
yeah, I
the white
saw that.
flags,
Yeah.
and then they had blonde, so they were saying, oh, how good what they did, these, there's a bit of it to an onward state and everything, but it passed. And
Mm.
I mean, what the main thing was the kind of, I guess, the comment. There was like a comment section where they were kind of going back and forth
Mm.
on the onward state. But
Yeah, Josh and I sometimes get caught up in these things.
Never read the comment sections.
Yeah.
That's my
all right,
advice.
all right.
They will never find a
I don't know where
larger
Onward State even
hive of
Onward
scum
State
and
even has
villainy
it.
than the comment sections on Facebook.
Oh yeah, Facebook you can definitely yeah. Like
So
New York, like the comment sections in New York Times articles, like can be yeah.
Uh, so on that note, we thank our esteemed guest and spiritual advisor, Rabbi Natan Moratsky.
Yep.
He will be a frequent contributor to this podcast.
Rabs.
If you could, do you have any social media you want to promote at all, Rabs, for people to follow you at, or if they want?
Social media. I don't know what's social media again?
The thing your children know how to use.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not on Snapchat. That I
Uh,
know. I mean, I guess we're officially on Instagram. Well, I don't post very much. I don't know. Is Facebook social media?
yeah,
Yeah. What's
Okay.
your Facebook and what's your
yeah,
website?
Oh, website I know. Yeah, that we
yeah.
have. Yeah, definitely.
So what's the website?
Chabad Penn State. Not just Chabad Penn State.
Dot
.com.
.com. Okay.
Yeah.
.com. And then Facebook is also Penn State Chabad or Chabad
No.
Penn State or something. Whatever it
So
is.
okay, so look up Chabad Penn State. You'll find Rabbi
It's
Moratsky.
it's it's, it's somewhere on Instagram too. Also,
Okay, by the time
definitely not Snapchat and what's the
yeah,
other one?
TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah, but not
Yeah,
on TikTok.
yeah. So Rabs is aging himself right now. So, um, okay, Boomer. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Some of my kids have TikTok and Snapchat.
So by the time this episode comes out, we should have a social media page which we'll promote. It should be, well, it'll be in the comments for this. But that's pretty much it. So I'm
Okay.
Scott. This is Josh. We got Rabs, and this has been the F and Yes Show. And we will end with, since it's a Star Trek theme, live long and prosper. Anybody want to add that in Hebrew?
Long of us.
My dad knows it in Yiddish, but
Yeah.
I
Do
only
you?
know the curse words in Yiddish.
It's definitely a blessing. It's a bracha. Yeah. Live long
Blessing.
and
All right.
prosper.
yeah.
Live long and prosper.
So shalom v'chaim gadol.
We
Peace
can
and
all
peace
Hold
and long
on.
life. Peace and long
can we all
life.
put up one eyebrow?
I'm gonna ask Rabbi Google.
Peace and long life. Shalom v'chaim gadol.
Years ago, I practiced for months how to raise one
The
eyebrow.
Chayot Zman Rev Sagseg.
Okay. That
Oh,
works. All right. Good night, everybody.
okay. All right.